at the expo. We've had people come from California, we've had people come from Poland, we've had people come from all over to show us their games. Today we have got somebody who's come from Dorking, so, but you know, what with the tube strike, it's probably going to take him as long as it would to get to California to get home. So thank you very much to Mike Simpson from Creative Assembly. He's the creative director on Shogun 2 Total War, and he's going to tell us all about it.
Hi everyone, what I'm going to do today is talk a little bit first about the Shogun Total War series and how we got to where we are today, and then show you a couple of demos of the game in its current state. So, 10 years ago we released a game called Shogun. It was a new kind of strategy game. It combined the turn-based strategy elements you get in games like Civilization with the fast-paced real action that you get in RTSs like StarCraft. And it did it in one game. It did it on an epic scale. So instead of having hundreds of men, we'd have thousands, and it was all with historical content. Right? And it created a recipe which has spawned a whole series of games and has been really successful. You might ask, how did we start? I mean, how do you come up with something like that which is unique and is going to work? The answer is by accident. Right? We originally set off with the intention of writing a role-playing game based on Monkey, and we were going to do it in Singapore, but things didn't quite work out. What happened is Command & Conquer came out, and that was followed by a whole host of Command & Conquer clones, games like Kill, Crush and Destroy, and they weren't great games, but they sold really well. And we looked at that and thought, we can do that. That sounds like easier than writing a role-playing game. So we set about writing a Command & Conquer clone. The idea was it was going to be cheap and cheerful, it was going to be top-down, and our thing was going to be, we'll set it in Japan, and we'll have lots of little tiny men instead of a few units. And we set off down that road. And after a while, another thing happened. A thing called the 3D effects card came out. It was the first 3D card on PC. And we played around with it for a bit and had this idea, well, maybe you could do spline-based landscapes, actually curved surfaces with this thing, which is something that PC games had never done up to that point. Everything was always square and nice corridors and everything. And we had a guy who did some clever maths, and suddenly we had a 3D landscape. And then we could put the camera in the eyes of the general and put you actually on the battlefield with everyone else. And we went back to our publisher and said, give us a little more time and we can make something quite interesting here. And then suddenly we weren't doing a B-grade Command & Conquer clone anymore, we were doing Total War. And just to, a lot of you guys probably won't have seen the original Shogun, so I'm actually going to show you a quick bit of footage of it. Yes, the battlefields all look like golf courses and the men were little tiny sprites, but it was fun. And we're now on to Shogun 2. Shogun 2 is the 6th game in the series, believe it or not, and they've all had big expansions as well, so there's been a lot of games along the way. The first of those was Medieval, and that was a kind of an evolution of the Shogun code base. And we've always had this thing where we've done evolution and revolution cycles, so Medieval was the evolution, but at the same time we were writing that, we started on Rome, which was a complete rewrite of the engine with the aim of doing something revolutionary. In the case of Rome, it was going into full 3D, getting rid of those little sprite men and doing full 3D graphics. We then went on to Medieval 2, that was evolution again, perfecting what we'd done with the Rome engine. And after that, it was Empire, which, again, complete rewrite, and we added naval battles. So, one of the questions we get asked a lot is, why do Shogun 2 again? The short answer to that is because we wanted to. We don't spend too much time trying to second guess what other people want. We actually make the games that we want to play. And everybody on the team, we just really wanted to go back to the Shogun content and do it again with the new engine. I guess the longer answer is that it does everything that we need for it to make a really great Total War game. Firstly, it has lots of factions vying for supremacy in a short period of time and a limited space, probably more so than any of the other periods we visited. Secondly, there's a strong technology race prompted by Europeans introducing gunpowder technology to Japan, and that drives the whole of the tech tree which any good strategy game needs. And thirdly, there's the content. The Japanese content is so cool. It has probably the most interesting units, the most distinct and well differentiated units of any of the periods that we've played with. The culture is incredibly interesting and mildly insane, which is always good. And the kind of events you get they're just so crazy that you wouldn't believe it. If we started putting some of these things into the game, people would think we're making it up. I mean, there are historical characters. For example, there's one famous commander who cut off his own head in the middle of a charge to inspire his troops. We thought about putting that in as a one-shot power for a unit, but it didn't seem that great. But anyway, it's great content. This time, with Shogun 2, we're also making art a big part of the focus for the game. So, what's new about Shogun 2? Okay, art is part of it. Japanese art has its own style, and part of our aim was to get that style to permeate all the way through the game. And not just with the art, but with the design as well. So we had this idea of the zen of Total War. The idea being to take the essential gameplay elements and kind of purify them down into something which is simple but still deep. That is, of course, incredibly difficult. Designing complicated things is really, really easy. Making something that's simple and deep and folds into it some complicated idea that you want to portray, that's quite difficult. But that's our aim anyway. With the turn-based strategy part of the game, we've put in a skill tree for characters. In the previous games, there was a kind of RPG element with your generals and so on, but it would be based on what you do. So what you do would gain you traits, and there was never a direct connection between what you did and what you got in a way that you could play for. So now we've gone the whole hog and put in a skill tree. So as you play through the game, your generals and your agents gain experience, and you get to spend those on developing skills and abilities for them. We've also made major revisions to all the other systems in the game, things like buildings and technology and economy and so on. It all has to be transported from Empire's 18th century mechanics to something that's feudal Japan. So that's a complete sort of rework for all of that. On the battlefield, battlefield heroes are one of the big new features. These are individuals with a small retinue who you can develop almost again in an RPG sort of way, which they turn the tide of battles. You use those in the key moments to try and turn the tide. There are also a lot of new unit abilities, which, again, is part of the Zen thing of trying to focus the gameplay down. We've added lots of unit abilities with cooldowns and some of them one shot to give you some more specific things that you can do on the battlefield to enhance your strategy and combine buffs from different sources to give yourself a big advantage. Siege battles, again, are a big focus. In the previous games, siege battles have never been amazingly good fun because I think in real life they probably weren't. The basic idea of a European siege battle was that there was a fortress, it had walls, you knock a hole in the walls and you run through the hole. There really wasn't very much more strategy than that. But a Japanese castle's got a completely different mentality to it. It's not saying stay out. It's saying come on in if you're hard enough, right? So the walls are sloped, so you can climb them. And there's a series of courtyards, and it's a bit like cracking a puzzle getting into a Japanese castle, where you're trying to decide which wall to climb, and guys are moving around inside trying to figure out which wall to defend. There's a huge amount of gameplay there which we've never had in siege battles before. And the last thing, the last big area for new features is multiplayer, but we still haven't announced what we're doing there, so that's still a secret. All I'd say is I gave the team the objective of doing something revolutionary. You guys will have to judge whether they succeed or not when the game comes out. Okay, let's actually have a look at the land battle. We've been working on the code for this for 14 years now. I know that sounds incredible, but it took us 4 years to write the first Shogun, and that's 10 years since then. Had me worried there for a moment. So the game's set in feudal Japan. There are 9 playable factions. There are lots of independent factions there as well, so everybody starts off with one province. In this battle, we're showing a night battle vaguely based on the Battle of Kawanakajima, but we changed some bits. So, in this battle, we're playing the Takeda clan. They're the guys in red, defending the fortress. And our army, the Chasakavi, are going to try and take them on and attack. One of the things that we've done, we made massive improvements to the graphics engine. We've put lots of effects in, like buildings, lots of water effects, mud, puddles, that kind of thing. So we've done a huge amount of work on that. We've also moved to a deferred rendering system, which allows us to put as many light sources in the game as we like. So which is very good for doing night battles and that kind of thing. There's about 30 different unit types. There's a much stronger stone, paper, scissors between them. It's fewer units than we've had in the previous games, but they're better differentiated, and you get to customize them a lot more. And you can see how the water's there sort of pouring off the buildings and this kind of thing. Okay, so we're going to start off. We're going to send in some of our samurai to attack some enemy samurai. So these are basically your standard samurai swordsmen. They're armed with katanas. They're very heavily armored. And the enemy are advancing towards us at the same time. Okay, the 2 units charge together. Dynamics of how these men interact, the pathfinding, the collision, all this kind of thing, is way harder than making the visuals work. In this case, we've put in a lot more matched combat, where 2 guys will pair off against each other and go for quite long sequences. A lot of motion capture animation. The British Kendo Association helps out with all of that stuff. Okay, we didn't come out so well off that. They're retreating back to their lines. I think that's pretty much even. So, sort of opening skirmish. It's fairly clear, though, we're going to have to commit the main body of our troops if we're going to win this. So let's get some stuff moved forward. It's fairly easy to order your troops. You select them, you right click where they want to go, you can drag out formations like that long line.